All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Feeling Lighter podcast by WeShape. What are you giggling about over there, Dr. Lisa?
It's too early.
It's too early? We've been going after it. We've recorded a few episodes a day. We do these in batches sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm excited right now because our guest right now is us. And we get to do a podcast episode with just you and me, which I always love these conversations, and I hope our listeners do too. And so we were trying to decide what to talk about. And since this is coming out towards the end of the first quarter, right, at the end of March, we can kind of reflect back on what's happened and what we've learned from our podcast guests. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm listening to these lessons and this wisdom, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of things that keep being repeated at me.
Yeah.
And they're things that I really feel like people need to just have a better quality of life, a better relationship with themselves, better movement capacity, everything, right?
Everything,
so, yeah, I would love to just have an episode where we share those thoughts.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
That sounds great. I'm down for that.
You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Of course. No. Before you steal my ideas. No, I'm joking.
Oh, yeah. Hit it. Let's go. You can take the first stab, and we'll go back and forth like we did before.
I feel like, well, first, I love doing this podcast. I think it's just very impactful for me personally, and then for the people, our audience who listens. And you're right. There's like reoccurring themes every time. We could be talking about trauma. We could be talking about boundaries, inner child work, diet culture, weight stigma, like anything. And some of the same things come up. And it's always sort of centered around how we feel about ourselves, how we treat ourselves, self-compassion, self-care, all of these things. And looking at the whole of our experiences and trying to make sense of everything so that we can be better people, but really like love ourselves better, be nicer to ourselves. So every time we do these podcasts, especially because we batch them, because it's like back-to-back in-depth conversations about like real life-changing work, I feel so moved to be better, but also to like just appreciate who and where I am now.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a reoccurring thing for me. It's like we can go to therapy, we can make our purpose around helping the world and impact and all that, but like it's okay to just like sit and be who you are, where you are, and then just to have a lot of love and compassion and respect for yourself on that journey, and not be so like, I got to get to the next thing. I got to go to the next thing. That's overwhelming. And that's kind of how I lived my life for years. Like, recovering perfectionist. What's the next goal? How can I get there? Got there. No celebration. Keep going because there's another goal. It's like, it's exhausting. And now being 43, I'm like, I love nothing more than to just sit and breathe and like look at birds. But there's some that inner critic we talk about in the back of my head saying, get up, you're being lazy. So
I think we still aspire towards achievement. Anybody who's an overachiever is going to have this little, chip on their shoulder that says like, do more. And it's like society also praises the do more, the show up more, the educate more, the make more, the do whatever, right? And I think at the end of the day, it's just not serving us. It's keeping us in this perpetual cycle of always being busy, always doing more.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered, like, what it would be like if we realigned the goalpost, not from how much I produce and achieve, but just how present I can be, how kind I can be, how, sure, impact others, but not to the detriment of yourself. Or to rise a shrine to yourself, which I think I see a lot as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the same page with the podcast. I have a lot of gratitude from a little bit of a different perspective. I'm not a traditionally educated person in movement or mentality by any stretch of the imagination. I'm an avid reader and listener and learner. And I think that's a great way to get educated if that's the path you're on. But I don't by any means consider myself an expert in some of these topics that we talk about. And yet what I get to see that's really cool is people echoing things that we've already made a cornerstone of what we try to teach people at WeShape.
Right.
And I feel so validated when that happens. Like, thank God we actually already wove this into the experience we're trying to get people to have. And the first experience I wanted to talk about was this theme that keeps popping up. And I know this one rather well because I was an achiever, right? I was an achiever, get after it. And the world praises achievers. And then you achieve more so that you can get more praise. And there's this spiral, right? And at some point, I just recognized that like this was never going to end.
Yeah.
I was never going to have to stop achieving in order to feel valuable. Mm-hmm. And while that fear and insecurity and shame and self-judgment and inner critic fueled me, part of the reason why I was unhappy at the end of that is because all of the fuel came from fear and insecurity.
Yeah, there
right?
you go.
If you constantly, even if you get the body of your dreams and it was rooted in fear and insecurity, do you think you're going to be secure? Right? Hell no, right?
Just going to be worried about losing it
we
again.
take this journey, we say, I'm going to use self-criticism and fear to drive me to a place where eventually I will love myself. And all we're doing is just like rehearsing fear and insecurity. Mm-hmm. And turns out you just kind of had to start working on what's preventing you from actually having self-worth in the first place. And then you don't have to, you didn't even need any of that other stuff.
Right.
You just had to work on that side of yourself. And that's the theme I wanted to focus on first was self-worth.
Yeah.
Because at WeShape, we have this thesis, and that is people think they need motivation in order to show up and do their workouts and take care of themselves. And that is an old model, in my opinion. And this old model of like, and it's all rooted around how you look and doing more and showing up because you hate yourself, right? And ultimately, what we believe is if you're able to start finding appreciation for yourself now, and it can come in baby steps. You know, we talked about this on several episodes, but you can't just look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm beautiful and amazing, and I'm going to show up for myself from a place of self-love. Like, if you don't believe that, you haven't taken the baby steps, it's just not going to resonate with you.
Right.
But if you walk past the mirror and you judge yourself and you criticize yourself and you go, wait a second, I don't have to believe all the thoughts I think.
Right.
And you pause and you say, you're doing great, and I really appreciate these ways that you've showed up for yourself. Mm-hmm. And then you keep doing that. It starts to become your identity, and it starts to build self-worth. And like my whole thesis on WeShape, this hypothesis from the start is like, if we can get people to genuinely love themselves, they will carve out space to take care of themselves.
Absolutely.
Period.
Yeah.
If we can't, then they will eventually fall off the wagon, quote unquote, and end up not taking care of themselves. But underneath it all is that intrinsic self-worth.
Yeah, it's really, like you said, believing that you are worthy of the time, the effort, the energy to do what needs to be done, and not from a place of, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I need to fix me. I love me. I want to take care of me, and I want to control the things that are within my control and manage my responses to the things that are not within my control and just show up for myself. And that looks, I think the thing with, fitness, and the reason that I love WeShape so much and why, I am a part of this company is because fitness is so rooted in, finding the lists of wrongs, right? And then doing this magic recipe, whatever it is, combination diet, exercise, whatever plan someone comes up with for you. And then, before picture and then after picture, this is what you look like as a result. This is how, your life is transformed. And it's rooted in so much superficiality. And that's why WeShape is so valuable to me, is because it's not about that. It's not about, did you work out for 30 minutes, 5 days this week? If so, good job. If not, step it up. It's not like, did you lose weight this week when we checked in? Like, have you dropped pounds yet? If so, good job. Keep going. If not, let's make some adjustments because, you got to do better. It's so not about this like negative reinforcement or this idea that you're here to make yourself different. I think, WeShape is about you're here to love who you are and to respect who you are and to make decisions that support that thought as opposed to fix me, I'm broken.
And to learn how to take care of yourself. What I've been telling people lately is this. I go, if I told you to stop brushing your teeth for 5 days, by the end of those 5 days, what would you think to yourself? You'd probably be like, give me the damn toothbrush. I need to take care of these teeth.
For sure. I wouldn't have listened to you, but yeah.
And yet we can go weeks, months, years without doing anything to care for our bodies.
That part, yeah.
And so how do we get people to view doing a movement practice I'm hesitant to say exercise or workout or something like that, doing a movement practice, working on their flexibility, working on their coordination, their body awareness, reconnecting with their bodies. How do we view that as essential as essential as, brushing our teeth or taking a shower, right? I think it's so common for us to do those things because society promotes that, right? Oh yeah, we want to have nice teeth. Well, why don't you want to have flexible muscles that are functional, right? At the same time, and I think the problem is that we see this all the time. Most of the people who show up and really get what we're trying to do are there because they've gotten to the place where they realize how slippery the slope they're on is.
Yep.
They're injured, like a regular workout's not going to help them. And they start to go, there's got to be something different. There's got to be a different way. And that's something that drives me nuts. We were talking about this last night at dinner. Just the fitness industry drives me nuts with their focus being on like energy expenditure, right? It's like, how much can you do? It's like pump the muscles so they grow, or like pump the heart so you shrink, right? It's like one of those two things.
That's it.
And all these fitness trackers, and we're closing the rings and we're measuring our metabolic and blood. And none of that considers like, are you walking well?
Yeah.
Is every step healing you or hurting you?
Yeah.
Right? Are you taking care? Do you have any tools? Do you have any awareness of how to take care of your own body when there's aches and pains and things like that need remedying? And it's just not out there. It's just not a part of the public awareness, and it drives me crazy.
It isn't, and it's speaking to another theme that comes up on this podcast all the time is like this separation of mind and body. Like,
cut off at the neck, right?
Yeah, it's like, your body is saying it needs this thing, but no, that is not true. Your brain needs to override that, because what we need you to do is not eat so that your body can shrink. And
But I'm hungry.
It's like, so what? Shut up.
Yeah.
Drink water, and
that's right. That's the internal dialogue that we don't tell people about.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like, shut up. You're not hungry. You just ate 2 hours ago, or you just ate yesterday. Like, what? Yeah. We ignore our body signals, and mainstream diet and fitness culture, encourages that. It's like, you have to have the power. You have to have the control. If you want your body to look a certain way so you can be healthy, which has nothing to do with real health, then you do these things, and you're disciplined, and you're praised for that. You're praised for being disciplined. We've talked about this many times on this podcast, but in my own journey and being my most restrictive self, working out 7 days a week with no breaks, every single day, eating food from small portion containers, literally living my days hungry, literally going to bed hungry every single night. Do you know what people would say to me? Oh my God, you look so good.
You're killing it. Great job.
You are killing it. You are so disciplined. I wish I could do that. 3 babies where? Like, are you serious? You're smaller than I am. All of that. And you take that in, and it reinforces these awful behaviors because there's no connection between your mind and your body. You have literally cut it off, and you have decided that things that don't feel good to me are things that are good for me. Like, that's what it is. Being hungry, good for me. Over exercising, good for me. Being exhausted every day, good for me. My dark circles sunken into my eyeballs, like, good for me. It's worth it because my body gets to stay small, and I get to be this, stereotypical version of healthy. And then once you start to reconnect, my reconnection process definitely has me at the largest weight I've ever been, because now my movement is about what feels good. My movement is not to harm me. My eating is about what nourishes me. I don't restrict. And so the coming back into that awareness, that mind-body connection, is really powerful for your overall health. But from the novice person looking on, they might look at me and be like, oh, she's so much less healthy now, or look, she put on weight, she let herself go. But really, they have no idea like how much better I am, because now there's a connection that just wasn't there for many, many, many years. Yeah. And that comes up all the time on this podcast, how we just neglect our bodies and pretend that those signals don't mean anything.
You're bringing up this story because you said, I got a couple things on my list. One was the inner critic, and another one was connecting with self. So this is a lot of what we've been talking about the last handful of time.
Yeah.
And I remember this story of this trainer. And when I first became a personal trainer, I went to this gym and I was working there, and I saw this guy who was like probably the most popular trainer there, right? And I'd watch these clients walk in, and these clients would show up, and he'd take out his calipers, right? You know, where you measure the body fat and do the things.
That is
And
so activating.
Yeah, start measuring all the spots. Pull the fat out and pinch it with the calipers, right? Oh, these love handles need a little work. Oh, these arms need some work. Oh, this, basically just shaming people. And then turns out when you shame people, they sign up, right?
They do.
More often than if you don't
They
shame
do.
them. And so from the very get-go, this is like a great example of how the fitness industry treats people, especially women, is like you show up hoping with hope, right? We just talked about that in a different episode. With hope, hoping things will change and you'll feel better. And then someone makes you feel horrible about yourself in order to get you to take action on what it is they're trying to do. And even if at the end of it, you receive this award of being the person you thought you were going to be from it, the whole time you were rooted in self-judgment and hate. And that's what you're going to still feel on the inside.
Absolutely.
And so I think people need to build some awareness around that and start doing, like you said, what feels good, and start also recognizing that if you had a great coach, a great trainer there, they're not going to just like push you. They're going to listen. By working with a great coach, you develop better connection with self.
Yeah.
It's not about no pain, no gain. It's not about not feeling the body. It's about going, hey, today we were going to work on this, but you seem burned out. So we're going to pivot to that instead, right? And creating flexibility for people, so that you should finish your movement practice, your routines, feeling better than when you started.
Absolutely.
And like for myself, like I'm lucky, I'm a pretty fit guy. Some days that means pushing myself because it feels good, right? That's the thing people don't realize. I'm pushing myself not because I hate myself, because I'm like, I got energy, I slept good, my body feels good. I feel like I could do a hard workout today.
Yeah.
Great, boom, finish that workout. Maybe my daughter wakes me up the next day, I go in, I try something else. I'm like, okay, hold on. I'm just going to like do some breath work and then stretch for like 30 minutes and call it a day, right? So it's about learning how to connect with yourself, meet your needs, right? Really on a deep level, and show up in a way that when you do something for yourself, you walk away feeling better, not feeling worse.
Yeah. I think that is an important caveat, is that when you're really connected with yourself, what feels good on Monday is not what feels good on Tuesday
Or Wednesday or any other day.
Any other day. When there's a true connection, there's true communication, within yourself, and you're attuned to your needs and how you're feeling, that will be different every single day. And there's no rules around it. There's no check boxes. There's no, oh, shoot, you didn't meet your quota, because it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have these imaginary boxes like, oh, man, I was supposed to do 4 days of strength training, 2 days of cardio. I was supposed to do. It doesn't matter. You can have a loose skeleton of a plan, but really, when you're tuning in and checking in with yourself, you go with the flow of what you need that day. And it kind of speaks to other topics we've covered here. But we talk about things like perfectionism and sort of rigidity, and
takes you away from what your body's telling you, right?
All the time. But even in your day-to-day life, when you're too rigid and you're not able to be flexible, it can take you away from being present in moments that matter, for having experiences versus just doing stuff all the damn time. We went on a trip, that was great. But if you're on a trip with your family and your whole time you're on your phone,
are you really there?
What are you really doing? You could do that at home, So it's just about this understanding that things happen. There's going to be deviations to your plan. But if you're attuned to what you need, you can go with the flow of those changes. And it doesn't have to be such a disruption to your life or a bad thing or something like, oh, I got to make up for this. Like that used to be my thing. Like, oh, if something happened in my day and I couldn't get my workout in, it's like, oh, we have to make up for this. Like tomorrow,
double.
We have to do double. I'm not kidding. I've done a 2 a day for that reason.
Done it before too.
And it's like, girl, sit down.
Give yourself some grace.
Like, Mike, we are so hard on ourselves. And we another topic, we've had a lot of inner child work discussions on this show. And for me, that's what it always goes back to. When I'm struggling with the self-compassion that I need, or I'm, not sure of my self-worth, I go back to seeing myself as this little kid. because I cannot be mean to a little kid. That gives me the push I need to be kind and loving and compassionate and empathetic and honest and open and not so judgy. Because with adult Lisa, I can judge her all day. You know, I'm better with it now. I don't do it all the time, but not with baby Lisa. Because I think about my own children. I'm like, I would never, I would never say these things to them. So yeah, that inner child work, we discussed it a lot, and that comes up because to me, that's a great stepping stone to treating yourself a lot better, seeing yourself as a child.
I'm going to touch on that in just one sec, but I want to just toot my own horn here for a second.
Toot.
That's okay. I want to get a little toot because we were talking about giving you what you need, right? And learning how to develop this sense of awareness around that. And one thing I was really proud of this year in particular was we made an adjustment to the way that WeShape was offering people workouts, and we created this programming algorithm that we call Coach.
Ooh.
And
Coach.
I am so happy about this. Personally, I've been using it like as my main workout system, which has been so fun. And the people who are members at WeShape and been with us for a long time as well have been really raving about it, because what we basically did was, instead of giving people a consistent program, we decided let's ask them some questions prior to the routine. And this is like the same thing you'd do as a great trainer, right? You'd have the routine and you'd ask some questions and then you'd adjust the routine. And so we ask them 3 questions. We say, how did you sleep last night? And depending on their answer, we give them a sleep score. How does your body feel right now? Okay, we can track that. We can combine those and come up with a how recovered are you score. And then we say, do you have 10, 20, 30, 45, or 60 minutes? And then depending on the answers to the 3 questions, we're going to give them a routine and then bring in the movements that we think are the best fit for them based on the other data that we collected from them early on, and create a more personalized routine. And so if you struggle to like know what you need, maybe just trying that out and seeing what it says to you when you say, I slept horrible, I feel horrible, and realizing, you know what? Like, give yourself some grace. Like, I was on a call, I think it was the challenge call that we had a couple weeks ago, and there was a lady that was struggling with, I can't remember what it was, but it was something like a multiple sclerosis, like flare up, right?
Yeah.
And she said she went in and used this Coach feature and was like, I didn't want to do a workout. I was so frustrated, my body, and I thought it was going to be something horrible. And I went and did it, and it just told me to stretch for like the whole time. And I got done, and I was like, I felt so damn good. And I'm like, God, that's so cool to have something that can help people develop the awareness of what they need, and then give them permission that, like, you don't have to go crazy today. You're exhausted, right? Like, you don't have to push yourself right now.
That's brilliant. Yeah. You deserve a toot for that. Toot.
Yeah, thank you.
Seriously. No,
thank you.
Good.
Oh, yeah. Well, coming back to the childhood trauma, that is another thing that I think is really important that we seem to touch on over and over again, because I think people have a sense that they have a lot more awareness and control. They're like a lot more in the driver's seat in their life than maybe we actually are.
Right.
And it's like when we start doing that deep inner work and we start going, oh, the reason why I'm showing up this way around my fitness routine is because I was fat shamed and this made me feel horrible about myself. And so I'm just like trying to climb out of this hole. And instead of going back and seeing, okay, you were a kid and that made you feel really horrible and insecure, and nobody around you could hold you through that or give you advice or make you feel validated and connected. Instead of seeing that for what it was, maybe re-experiencing some of those feelings, and in that moment saying, it's okay, you're worthy just as you are.
Yeah.
And we still love you no matter what your body looks like, and you're deserving of love and care right now without having to do anything. Instead of doing that work, we just keep chasing that goal on the hedonic treadmill, just trying to do more. And we don't realize that most of our patterns in life are driven by those insecurities and those childhood traumas that shaped the way that we make decisions.
Yeah, especially all that stuff that happens like, 0 to 6 or 7?
Yeah.
It's like that stuff, it just becomes like a part of who you are. And so, you know, as you get older and hopefully come into the awareness that, like, oh, that's not actually healthy.
Yeah.
You know, the process of unlearning it's still a process.
Oh, it's so painful.
Like, it's so painful. It's like taking everything you were ever taught as a child and like invalidating it and then erasing it from your mind somehow and then replacing it with a more true and healthy thought. That shit doesn't just go away. Like, it's still just there, and it's lingering, and it's so hard, you know, to remember. And what I love about this podcast and all the guests that we've had, they're good at reminding us of like red flags and like, symptoms of like slipping back into your old patterns and old ways of thinking. So it's kind of nice to, have that information in your toolbox. But that process of unlearning and letting go of things that you thought you knew forever.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea, but I'm being honest, I was a parentified child. I was very disciplined, very conservative, very much like a go-getter, a planner. If I said it, I did it, and it was done. It was like not even sometimes, you worked hard for things, but it was just very natural to me. So coming into this awareness of like, just because you did things. I thought like probably up until my mid-20s, I kind of thought I knew everything. Like, I'm just being honest. I was like, I figured this life thing out. Like, it's a simple math equation. It's like.
And then a layer of the onion peels back and you're like, I know nothing.
It's like calories in versus calories out. Duh.
Yeah.
Like that was my life. And then, yes, it was like late 20s, definitely, where it started to just really unravel. And you realize like, like I thought I had it all figured out. And then, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And then coming into this new knowledge and awareness and then giving up, and not in a negative way, but giving up this idea that I ever will be perfect, that I ever will know it all, that I'll ever be my thinnest, most healthiest looking self or whatever, or the picture of beauty to everyone in the world. Giving up all of these like ridiculous, honestly, ideas. It's like scary, but so freeing. Because it's like, I can just live now. Like I can just like check in with myself and be kind and love on the people in my life and like, care for others, within my capacity and just like enjoy my life. Like I don't.
Ooh, within my capacity. That is so big. You said this in the first part of this conversation, which like I literally have this tattoo here that represents this for me, but there's this dichotomy I try to hold, which is like become better, right? It's like this thing that we all want. We want to become better.
Yeah.
And if you become better, it's fantastic as long as it's not driven by fear and insecurity and self-judgment. But I bet you most of the people you see becoming better are fueled by that.
Yeah.
And my question is, how can you have a deep sense of worth? I am enough, right? Like right now. I don't need to do anything to be worthy.
Nope.
I am enough. And I also want to improve, right? Because people get caught up in that game of like doing more, improve. And then they lose the thing that's really important, which is like, can you be present with the people that you love? Can you be present with yourself? Can you stop?
Can you stop?
Can you stop? Can you sit?
It's like a drug.
Can you be? Right?
You just
We're not
be?
Human doings.
Yeah.
We're human beings.
Ooh,
right?
Fancy.
Yeah,
like
we should be spending more time
being,
right? Which is hard.
Sure.
I get that. Trust me when I know I get that. Like I was somebody, I still am like this in a lot of ways, but who couldn't sit still. And it took me years of practicing sitting still to be able to actually not only do it, but appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I think people need to maybe value that more than their output. Can you be with yourself?
It's hard too. We talked about this at dinner as well. Some of the things we want people to be able to track are the things that are really like intuitive and deeply meaningful, but they're so
How many kind things did you say to yourself today? How much compassion did you give yourself today?
They're just so much more abstract than what seems natural. Like, how many steps did I take?
What if your Apple Watch could tell you how many positive thoughts you had about yourself each day?
Like, seriously?
If you could, you know what? The world would be a better place real fast. So maybe let's hope technology catches up to that.
Advances in that way,
right?
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's the deeply meaningful, abstract things that we can't always put into words, that we don't have a value.
Quantification.
Yeah, we can't quantify all of it, but it's really the stuff that matters the most.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's the stuff that really matters the most. And this idea behind, I want to be better, I want to be working toward things, but I'm enough as it is. The problem with that, the problem with maintaining those two thoughts together is that oftentimes if we're trying to be better, we are admitting or assuming sometimes that something's wrong with where we are already.
Yeah.
And so that's why they're always in misalignment or in competition, because it's like something's got to be wrong if I'm working on my next, step or my better. But really just recognizing like we're good enough as we are. And we don't have to do anything else. I always tell my clients this when we're coaching and we're doing body image work. I'm like, you are enough. You are the cake. Everything else you do on top of it, the degrees, the courses, the programs, the achievement, that's just the icing. And icing is great. Like, don't get me wrong. I like good icing. But you're already the cake. You're already enough. You don't need anything else. Everything else is extra.
Yeah.
So if you're working toward more, beautiful. But if you're in a season of your life where you're chilling and coasting and appreciating what you got, that's fine too.
I want to say one more thing about that too, because sometimes your intention is to work towards the better version of you. Mm-hmm. And what life seems to be manifesting around you is a lot of pain and patterns and things that are very uncomfortable for you, your loved ones around you. And I think if people can give themselves a long enough time horizon, we can always look at the experiences that we're having right now as the thing that actually got us to more self-love, self-connection, etc. But in the moment when we're like, oh my God, this is why I feel the way I do, this story, this experience, whatever it may be, it can feel like a pit of despair. It can feel really, really dark. And so if you're in that space right now, first of all, don't do it alone. Right? No. Seek help in any way that you can. Yeah. And second of all, recognize that, the amount of darkness that we can embrace about ourselves in our life also increases the amount of light and love that we can offer to ourselves and others.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important for people to know that too, because I have had some dark pits before when I was trying to become better and everything's worse. And you have this moment of like, wait a second. That was really essential, for me to get to this other place.
It's a part of the process. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I've got one more that I really want to talk about.
Okay.
And it's questioning beliefs.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I think that, and
That's all we do here.
We had a good conversation at dinner, but like one of the things that we do at WeShape is teach people that they don't have to believe all the thoughts they think.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for people to really internalize that statement, because before you are told that or given permission to question your beliefs or not believe your beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. People just show up in the world. And again, they think they have so much personal freedom and autonomy, but they don't realize they're making decisions and actions based on their beliefs. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, we can find some beliefs, and that's the inner critic we talked about earlier. It's that thought and that phrase that we repeat to ourselves over and over again that's trying to drive us to action from a negative place. Yeah. If you hear that, and you can pause and you can recognize, oh, this is a belief, this is a pattern that I consistently have.
Yeah.
And then you can apply what we've already talked about here to inquiry, right? Maybe it's a meditation, maybe it's working with a therapist, but say, why does this exist? And you can find that early childhood experience, right? That is the root of this belief coming through. You can do some healing work around that. And then all of a sudden, you can replace that belief with something that serves you, or decide that it's not a belief that you want to hold true for yourself.
Right.
And so it's a really beautiful way to say, hey, there are systems and there are ways to change the actions you're taking in your daily life and the outcomes that those actions produce, which is your life, the results of your life, by starting with the thing that those actions are connected to, which is your fundamental beliefs.
Your fundamental beliefs, which, of course, and we talk about this all the time, a lot of times those beliefs weren't ours to begin with. They were just given to us.
Most of the time.
Where did this even come from? It's like just what we absorbed as children when we talk about those, like very significant, childhood development years, the things we heard, the things we saw, the messages we got. And then once my favorite part in that process is discovering like how untrue some of the beliefs are.
Yeah.
Like how off base they are. Like, and I built my whole life around this ridiculous idea. So those are easier to get rid of. But the ones that stick, the ones that had deep meaning to you at one point, the ones that you really adopted as your own, unlearning them and letting them go and replacing them, as you said, you said it lovely, but that process for us sometimes is years.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
And it's like reminding yourself over and over, this thing isn't true. But exactly what you started with is this idea that just because you have a belief, a thought, doesn't make it true, doesn't mean you have to lean into it. We get to choose what we lean into, and then what we don't. And we get to choose what our new beliefs will be and how they will guide us. And it's even more affirming when we have the evidence to the contrary of those negative beliefs, so that we can, empower ourselves to kind of move on in a new way. So,
one of the ways you're making progress is when that inner critic comes out again, because it doesn't go away. It's just like you turn the volume knob down, the frequency down, right? But it's still there. My favorite thing now is when my inner critic pops up and I just start laughing.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like you have somebody following you around who you just know is a fool and is just like, you're being a lazy piece of shit. And you're like, like, come on.
Thank you for that.
Thanks for that. I know I'm doing great. Thanks for that. When you can really believe that new belief, right? And really let that other side just go. It just becomes almost hysterical, the amount of times that we try to sabotage ourselves.
Yeah, and I think over time the voice will often get quieter. Maybe you'll hear the voice less frequently.
Yeah.
Perhaps it'll just be funny. Like, this is ridiculous that I'm still even thinking this. But the point is that we won't lean into it, and we won't make the decision that this is the path we're going to walk anymore, because we know better. And the whole hope here is that when we know better, we do better, or we try our best at least. So,
Gotta love that. When we know better, we do better. Mm-hmm. So my hope is that y'all took something away from this podcast episode. Maybe pick one thing, one insight that we shared, and run along with that and see if it helps improve your life, helps improve your connection with yourself, helps improve your overall experiences. So, thanks for listening. Thanks for the conversation, Dr. Lisa.
Thank you. Always good talking to you.
Awesome. And make sure you try out WeShape if you want us to help guide you through the process of learning how to reconnect with your body and move your body better so you feel better in your body too. Mm-hmm.